Now, specifically in the text, Jesus says that there are two types of yeast that you should watch out for. He says they are the yeast of the Pharisees and the yeast of Herod. So what are these two yeasts? What is he talking about here? The yeast of the Pharisees is probably the easiest to identify if you've been reading through Mark with us. The Pharisees are intensely concerned with behavior. They want everyone to follow all the rules that God has made and all the rules that they've made on top of God's rules. And so the yeast of the Pharisees is the feeling that my status, my value as a human being is based on something other than Jesus plus nothing. So think, is that yeast in my life? Do I see my value as a person as based on anything other than Jesus plus nothing? Let me give you a test for this. Do you feel morally superior to anybody? Do you feel morally superior to those people who don't get a vaccine because you think they're conspiracy theorists? Do you feel morally superior to those people who do get a vaccine because you did your research? Do you feel morally superior to all those people who voted for Donald Trump 4 years ago? Or maybe morally superior to all those people who voted for Joe Biden a couple months ago? Do you feel morally superior to all the people who aren't in church this Sunday, who didn't value God's word like you do today? Do you feel morally superior to the people who don't take care of their kids the way that you would, aren't able to manage them like you can? Do you feel morally superior to other people because of your behavior in any way? That's the yeast of the Pharisees. I think if we're honest about it, every one of us has that. That's why Jesus tells us to watch out for it. He then also says you should watch out for the yeast of Herod. Herod is a character who only shows up one time in the Gospel of Mark. It's at John the Baptist's beheading, if you remember that from a couple months ago. And very obviously, Herod's struggle in that text is that of status. So remember, the text tells us that he was with the leading men of Galilee. So he got all the elites together for a party at his place. And then when his wife's daughter asked him for the head of John the Baptist on a platter, Herod didn't want to do it, but he gave in because he was embarrassed of his guests. In other words, the yeast of Herod was his self-perception, that who he was is what made him valuable. How might this show up in our lives? Is who we perceive ourselves to be what makes us valuable? So I'm a smart person, or I'm a successful person, or I'm a good parent, or I'm a good friend, I'm a hard worker. Are any of these identity markers where we find our value? It's the yeast of Herod. Let me give you another one. I think in our culture, it's really easy to identify myself as a Christian without actually being one. The Bible will tell you that you are not a Christian because you think you are a Christian. You are not a Christian because you act like a Christian. And if you actually will read the next text, I don't want to spoil it for you, next week's text, but if you read next week's text, you'll see the Apostle Peter will say, Jesus, you are the Messiah, and then in the very next sentence will admit that he doesn't understand it. And that means that you can even say the right words about Jesus, and that doesn't make you a Christian. But in our culture, how easy is it to say, I'm a Christian because, well, I've always been a Christian. I don't know, I don't remember switching. Or my daddy was a Christian, my mom was a Christian. I'm a Christian because I'm nothing else. I'm a Christian because I go to church occasionally. None of those things count. If you believe that you're a Christian simply because you identify as a Christian, that's not Christianity, that's the yeast of Herod. That's what Jesus tells us to watch out for. You can be sitting in here every Sunday but not actually believe in Jesus.